The next is something called the 6 stains. The 6 stains are pride, lack of faith, and lack of effort, distraction, outward distraction, inward tension, and discouragement. So the first of which is pride, as I mentioned before, that one of the reasons that during the Dharma teachings you are not supposed to wear hat physically is hat or caps or hat or headgears. Headgears are usually a type of headgears are related to certain creed, certain status in ancient India, anyways. So therefore, when people come with their headgears on, they usually think that, okay, because I belong to this and that class, so I am higher than most of the audience, of course, and then also I'm higher than the teacher, even in terms of caste and in terms of class. So one very important thing is when Buddha sort of started his fellowship, when Buddha started teaching, there is no this distinction or this in Buddhism, in Buddha Dharma, in the fellowship of the Buddha, there is no discrimination between the so-called high caste and low caste. Okay, there is high caste, there is low caste. Buddha did not sort of challenge the caste system. Many people say Buddha is a revolutionary in the sense that he challenged all of these things. He did not sort of like challenge them in the sense that it is wrong or right, but he said, in my fellowship, in my fellowship, in my Sangha, there is no discrimination between high caste and low caste and so on and so forth. So anyone who came under the wing of the Buddha is looked after as equal. Anyway, so the point is when people come from a certain background, social background, social high status and a class, they usually carry their pride with them because in practice, like during the Buddha's time, after the Buddha and before the Buddha, there has always been the system, the Dharma system is already there. The Buddha Dharma started from Buddha's time, but before that, the Hindu Dharma still that was there. And then the great sages were teacher to the kings and the nobility and so on and so forth. So, so in such regard, in certain royal courts, even though they would like respect the master, but the master would stay below the king and so on and so forth. The guru of the king, the teacher of the king, would be seated below below the king, because the king is the ruler of the kingdom, and so he has a higher social status and so on and so forth. So many of these things were there, and it doesn't really matter whether somebody wears a headgear during the Dharma to the Buddha's teaching. It doesn't really affect the Buddha himself, so to speak. The thing is, when you come wearing those high gear, the royal gears, and especially the headgear and so on and so forth, you come with something called pride. You are armed with pride, and that pride actually interferes your ability to grow spiritually. And so therefore the headgears were part of the headgears. You are not supposed to wear headgears during the Dharma teaching and so on and so forth. Anyway, so all this comes from the fact that one should do away with pride one should do away with pride. So if you come with the pride, then you will not listening. You will always feel that you know, even though I don't know much about Dharma teachings, but I know a lot about many other things than my teacher. So therefore, I'm greater than my teacher, and I just came to learn this small thing. And after this, I'm going to do what I'm. This is going to enhance my ability, enhance my superpower. And the so-called teacher from which I'm receiving my Dharma talks is like a vassal king, a small kingdom, the king of a small kingdom, giving their gifts to the emperor of the land. So I'm just enhancing my power, so to speak. So in this regard, you may be able to grow yourself in the sense of supernatural powers and so on and so forth. But in the spiritual sense, you are not growing at all. So therefore, if your goal is to become enlightened, if your goal is to become clearer and clearer, more to pacify all your negativities, to bring clarity to your mind, to your decision, to your life, and to bring stability to yourself, to bring peace into your livelihood. If these are your goal, then pride is to be done away with. So therefore, the first thing is Magil, which is the pride, and then of course comes the from pride comes the pride is always followed with lack of faith. So if you have actually the Tibetan word here, English, in the English it says lack of faith, but the Tibetan here is kesu, which is looking down upon something, to look down. So if you have pride usually brings you up and the other person down. So if you look down upon the other person, which is the teacher, obviously, then you have no faith that the teacher can actually do much for you. And in which regard you lose faith, and when you lose faith, there is no effort, and when there is no effort, then there will be you will not be listening intently, attentively attending the teaching. So therefore there comes the outward distraction, and when that happens, when you are distracted, when your mind is distracted, but your body is staying inside at the teaching venue, then there's a tension. There is a tension between the mind, which is going outward, and the body, which is trapped inward, and then the tension builds up. And with the tension comes discouragement, because when you are filled with tension, then the results will be very difficult to come by. And when there is no spiritual results, then you meditate or practice for hours, days, and months and years, and still there is not much result coming out. And then comes the discouragement. So each thing leads to another, starting from pride. And then with pride, I think I told this story last year, but just a reminder. There was this story of one student coming to. The student himself is a great learned scholar, and he came to another great master, and the great master is supposed to have amassed to be enlightened. It's a Japanese story anyways. So the master is supposed to be enlightened. The master who the student came to learn from is regarded as an enlightened person, and the student himself is a very great scholar. So when he came to the learn from the master, he was filled with pride, and the master actually noticed that the student is full of pride, and then the master actually set the tables for the student to sit down and the master served tea to the student. Usually it's the other way around, right? And then the student also thought like, okay, oh, even the master knows that I'm a great scholar. He respects me. That's why he's serving me instead of me serving him. And then the master poured tea to him. So he has his, he was given his cup, and the master started pouring the tea from the teapot, and he kept pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring and never stopping. And the tea overflowed and overflowed. And the student was like, hey, what are you doing? Stop. What's the point of this thing? What's the point of what you are doing? Have you gone blind? Have you gone mad? What's wrong with you? And the master said, I'm doing what you are just doing. You came to me filled with pride, and you have no room for anything to grow, anything to learn, anything to listen to. And similarly, I'm just showing what's happening to you in a physical form. And then in that moment, since he's a great scholar and he's a great thinker, obviously, of course, that was the eureka moment. That was the moment for him. And then it struck him, the student, and then he realized he was being proud and all that. And then he was humbled by the wit showed by the master, and then he knelt before the master and then start learning from him. So this is one story that is related to pride.